Greetings and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team video, where today I'm going over the brand new FAQs as a surprise, because it's a surprise to me waking up to this. But please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of today's FAQs. Do you like the clarifications or not? Let me know. And we've got a Discord you can check out in the episode description below, an affiliate in Calendar Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. But yeah, let's go over the new FAQs. So these are found on the download section for Warhammer Community, and they've all been updated. And I'll go through them all in depth, highlighting all the changes for you, so you don't really need to check them out unless you want a physical copy. So starting off first, we have climbing gear clarified for the Scout Squad. So some people may say it's been nerfed. Those people don't play the game. But what has happened to climbing gear in general, if you weren't aware, basically about a few months ago, people technically pointed out rules as written. From the wording of climbing gear, you could start your climb from when you start your move, as in you don't have to be within an inch of terrain to climb. So you could start saying, oh, I'm 6 inches from the terrain, so I'm going to start climbing now, then move my horizontal distance. So what this basically allowed people to do, if TOs allowed it, was to basically moonwalk across the air. So that's been basically completely disallowed now. So if you want to use climbing gear, you have to be within black horizontally of a terrain feature in order to climb it, and that covers all climbing gear. So even though no good TOs were allowing this interpretation, it's now been rules as written completely blocked out, which is good to see. It's another weird rules as written loophole that's now been closed, which is good. It's glad to see this is fixed. Like last time we had Get Down Mr. President fixed, this time we've had climbing gear fixed. Now for the Mandrakes, we've had a lot of Mandrake clarifications. So starting off, their faction tack-up, where basically Do I Control Heavy has been banned in Into the Dark, which shouldn't surprise people because every tack-up like this was banned, which is good there, because otherwise it's just an auto score or unscorable on Into the Dark, depending on your interpretation. Then, is it possible to increase an operative's APL to more than freeze in the Choosers of Flesh operative's wholesale harvest ability? No, which is good, because technically, from the way they'd written it, you could, so that's good. Does the Shadeweaver operative's open shadow portal action count as the use of shadow passage for the purpose of the kill team's once per turning point limit? Yes. So basically, you can't use his and then someone else can shadow passage unless they're using your portal, which is a good clarification there. Some rules apply when an operative moves within the distance requirement of a token of an other operative, either Proximity Mines or Quicksilver Strike. If a Mandrake operative performs a shadow passage action and is set up within distance requirement of the aforementioned rules, is it the same as moving there? No, during the shadow passage action, the Mandrake operative doesn't move, it's removed and set up back again. This I find weird because they state it counts as a move action, but they've clarified it, so at least we have an answer. Even though I don't agree with the answer, I'm glad they actually have clarified it, which is good. As the shadow passage action is not a move, the operative is removed and set up again. Does this mean the Mandrake operative can be set up on the other side of wall terrain? Yes, note that as per the core rule designer commentary, the heavy part of a terrain feature it must be set up within black of must be a pillar or wall end, including wall ends for hatchways, or heavy terrain feature from the Gallow Dark supplements. So that's kind of a 2-for-1. Not only does it clarify where you can set up after using a shadow passage, it kind of also reinforces where you can measure where you count as being within black from for the purposes of in shadow. So I would have preferred if they just said it separately instead of subtly combining them two together. But as a TO and a player, you now have an answer. So now you know where to set up if you're using the shadow passage action in Into the Dark, and now you also know what you count as being within shadow from. So it's not walls, it's only pillars and wall ends. If an enemy performs a charge action, then another action before performing a fight action in the same activation against a Mandrake, can I still use the Shadow's Bite tactical ploy? Yes. So this basically means no matter what order they do it in, as long as you're in shadow when your opponent fights you, you can become the attacker and basically fight or parry first. So nice clarification there. If I activate the Dirge Maw operative's Haunting Focus ability and that Dirge Maw incapacitates the enemy it is focused on, do I activate next or my opponent? Your opponent activate next. So that basically means if you activate the Dirge Maw, kill your target, you don't get to activate again. Your opponent gets to activate with someone else. So good clarification, because some people were trying to say they get 2 activations in a row. If 2 Dirge Maw operatives focus on each other with their Haunting Focus ability, and the operative A is selected to activate normally, then operative B would attempt to activate first as a result of Haunting Focus ability, Which model activates first? Operative B. So we have some timing clarification there. Confusing, but at least we have timing clarification. And then question, after I activate a Dirge Maw operative as a result of the Haunting Focus ability, does my opponent still have to activate the operative that the Dirge Maw focused on? Yes, unless they are unable to, i.e. that operative has been incapacitated, in which they can activate another operative instead. So just double clarifying what happens if the Dirge Maw kills its target. So for the Nemesis Claw, in Midnight Clad, change the first bullet point to read, if it has a conceal order, regardless of any other rules that treat the operative as having an engage order, e.g. vantage point, because basically the issue, this doesn't give them super conceal. This is, remember, meeting the conditions for their faction ability, because the problem is if you were on a vantage point, you technically treated them as having an engage order. So if they were behind light cover, their ability wouldn't trigger. But if they were in front of a barricade or light cover, their ability would. So that just basically means even if you have vantage, they're in Midnight Clad always triggers. And now also applies to anything that would treat them as having an engage order, which is really good. So basically it means their faction ability is more usable, which is really good. And then for Vox Screen, change the second and third sentences to read, your opponent can now activate the operative until you have had a turn to activate a ready friendly operative or perform an overwatch. If there are no other ready enemy operatives, this tactical ploy has no effect. So it's not really a buff, it's just more clarification. So you can actually now even use it when you're out of activations to overwatch, which is really good. It just gives the Vox Scream some more use and more ways your opponent has to be aware of how you can use it. So just some nice clarifications there. So for the Wyrmblade, once again, it's just climbing gear. So you have to be within black of a terrain feature, so no longer you can moonwalk across the board and other operatives. Warpcoven has had a minor change, so for the boons of Tzeentch ability, add the following to the end of the third paragraph. When randomly determine a boon in match play, re-roll if you determine a boon another friendly operative on your roster has. So basically, if you're rolling randomly, you can't have duplicates of boons, which I feel is a bit sad. Like, if you're rolling, you should, because you can't really choose, you should be allowed duplicates. But unfortunately you can't, so just a little bit of a party pooper noise here for the Warpcoven. For the Phobos strike team, their grapnel launcher has been clarified in terms of that they have to be within black of a horizontal terrain feature. So once again, it's not a nerf, just a clarification. You can no longer moonwalk across the air. Unfortunately, Pathfinders have not had another operative removed, but their climbing gear has also been clarified, so it follows the rules as everyone else. And the same applies to Kommandos as well for their climbing gear. For the Inquisitorial Agent, if a Hexorcist operative uses the Chasten unique action on a Mandrake Chooser of the Flesh operative Soul Harvest unique ability, what happens? The Mandrake player cannot add new Soul Harvest tokens to their pool, but they can continue to spend any acquired via the Soul Harvest ability as normal. So he shouts to stop you basically harvesting souls, but allows you to spend them. So once again, it's great they've clarified this. It's just so funny. So then for Hierotek Circle, for the purposes of the magnification conduit ability and determining line of sight, can I treat other friendly operatives as the active operative even if it's in engagement range of an enemy operative? Yes, so basically if your Cryptek or a Prentek are in combat and then you're shooting your Prentek through your Cryptek or your Cryptek through your Prentek, even if they're engagement range, you can shoot people. So if you weren't aware of this already, you are now in for official World of Pain. And then after the Q1 2024 balanced data slate, how do I determine the Cryptek actions available to the Technomancer operative and a Prentek selected alongside a Technomancer? So when a Technomancer operative is added to your roster or data slate, it already has the Rites of Reanimation ability. Then it gains the Canoptic Repair and Nanoscarab Repair Swarm Cryptic actions. A Prentek operatives can perform those two Cryptic actions, but cannot use the Rites of Reanimation ability as it's no longer Cryptic action. So once again, we've got full confirmation here that basically the Technomancer gets all three abilities baked in, which is good. Nice clarification there. And even then, even though this is a nice clarification, it doesn't make the Technomancer the best. It's still the Chronomancer, but good clarifications there. So the Hearthkyn Salvagers, their Hearthkyn grenade launcher, well, grenade ability. So it's been updated to say, place a utility grenade token within red of this operative, then select one of the following and affects the last of the end of the turning point, even if this operative is incapacitated. I was going to thought they would change it to until the operative next activates. So weird, interesting change there, but it's still good. So even if he dies, so what you could do mission actions on death. So, not mission, so you can't really use that mission action on death, but basically, if you if he grenaded someone and then placed a utility grenade launcher, that still triggers until he dies. So it makes the grenade launcher the grenadier even better, and he was already a really good operative. And then once again, climbing gear has been clarified to fix and work like everyone else's climbing gear. So for Hand of the Archon, the Disciple of Elendra's Torment Grenade ability, you have to select 1 point on the kill zone floor, or an advantage point in the kill zone within red of this operative, because some people were arguing they could place it in the air on the wall of buildings. So thank you, people. Now we have this clarification, even though no one was playing that way. It's just, at least it's clarified. And then, does a Painbringer from the Elixirkin operative's combat drug ability allow operatives to ignore lost wounds and mortal wounds as a result of the mortal and critical hit rule? No, because specifically the Feel No Pain, like the damage prevention roll from the Hand of the Archon, only says attack damage. It doesn't actually work against mortal wounds. So I already knew that, but it's good clarification there. And then, does the Hatchway Fight action qualify for the Crimson Duelist Operative Crimson's Assault action? For example, could it fight, then Hatchway Fight, or Hatchway Fight twice, if those actions are possible to fulfill the Crimson Assault action? Yes, so that is actually a buff, because rules as written, you weren't able to Hatchway Fight twice with the Crimson Duelist, but now you can. So just some nice clarification. For Fellgor Ravager, the Frenzy ability has been updated just to include when you get Soul Harvest tokens as Mandrake players. So that's the only thing. They've just expanded when your opponent triggers what. So basically, when a Mandrake player kills you with their Choose of the Flesh, they get their Soul Harvest tokens when they incapacitate you and trigger your frenzy, not when you're frenzied. So yeah. And then we actually had a Compendium change, but this is just for the grapnel launcher, so its climbing gear has just been ratified to match everyone else's, so just some universal changes there. And then finally, we've actually had a lot of core rules changes. So for line of sight and being visible, change the second paragraph to read, in the rare instance that bases or parts of the active operative's miniature prevent an intended target from being visible to the active operative, such as the operative directly below or above the intended target, treat those bases and parts as being invisible. Bases and operatives, like your own operative yourself, don't block visibility. So you can look through yourself. So a nice clarification there. If an operative can perform a shoot action while within engagement range, such as the Starstorm Duelist, if it's in base contact with an intended target that's wholly within an area of smoke that would usually be obscuring, is the target still obscured? Yes. So even if you're base to base or within 1 inch of someone in engagement range while in smoke, you cannot shoot them. So just a nice clarification there. When an operative jumps, can it change directions while moving across the gap? No, it must move in a straight line. So interesting clarification there, because technically you can kind of jump at an angle, but in Kill Team, you can only jump in straight lines. So do you have to declare the use of all rerolls before the dice are rerolled? No, you can see the result of what a reroll before deciding on a different reroll, and can see the result of each reroll before deciding the reroll of another result, e.g. Relentless. So basically, you don't have to reroll all your dice at once. If you're fishing for like crits, you can keep rolling one dice at a time to try and trigger a crit to proc rending. So just a nice clarification there. And if any rolls happen at the same time during a turning point, but initiative hasn't yet been decided, e.g. in the ready operative step, who decides the order of which they resolved? So the person who had initiative previously. If it's the first turning point, the defender decides. So annoyingly, instead of specifically discussing when Torment Grenade Mortal Wounds trigger and when Reanimation Healing triggers, it basically goes down to initiative again, because we have all these timing clashes introduced by Games Workshop, but at least they're technically clarifying it. So basically, if you haven't rolled initiative yet, it goes to the person who had it before. If it's the first turning point, defender decides. So at least we've had some clarification. In Killzone Gallowdark, so Into the Dark, does the hatchway of an open hatchway provide cover and obscuring? Yes, but resolve this as described above. So basically, even if the door is in the air, it can still provide cover, but the hatch as well. So basically, you have to use common sense. So yeah, it does provide cover and obscuring. Can an operative be wholly within a terrain feature while also being on the center line? Yes. So there was oddly a lot of people who ruled this as no. I ruled it as yes. So I'm glad I was unintentionally right. So basically, hold center line is a little bit better. When making a shooting attack with the blast special rule and using the close quarters rule, do you roll 1 less attack dice for all subsequent shooting attacks if a cover line is drawn to the original target that crosses someone with an engage order? No, only roll 1 less dice for the original target. All other subsequent shooting attacks are resolved as normal, so you don't roll less attack dice. So a buff for Blast on Into the Dark. Once again, a lot of these FAQs were clarified at Worlds, but it's nice we finally had them clarified, even if it's like 6 months later. So overall, those are all the changes. It's nice. We've had climbing gear ratified. We've had timings clarified mostly. And Nemesis Claw and Mandrake have received clarifications, which is good because it basically only took a month-ish, 6 weeks, something like that, for the Mandrakes and Nemesis Claw, which is really good. It's nice that Games Workshop are actively doing it for new factions quickly. My only gripe is, why do we... It's like we should be getting FAQs sooner. I appreciate that they are closing loopholes quite quickly and addressing concerns and clarifications. It's just weird we haven't had a lot of other clarifications. I thought we'd get a fix to Beta Decima, but maybe that's for the balanced data slate, which should be in 4 weeks at the end of June. So it's kind of weird. I would have also liked this to kind of time in with balanced data slates, but personally, I think we should have more frequent FAQs as long as we stick to 3 monthly balanced data slates. But yeah, as I said, main things that have been clarified. Climbing gear, you can no longer climb across the sky. It's not a nerf. It's only a nerf if you were playing climbing gears, if you could basically fly over people. Mandrakes have had their timings and Into the Dark clarified, so basically one of their faction tag-ups has been banned for Into the Dark, which is the same for lots of other factions, and then just had clarifications with timing. Nemesis Claw, basically their in Midnight Clad ability always works, right? Even if you have an ability that ignores conceal, such as Vantage, so at least they have some benefit turning point 1, so they don't just get ruined by horrible drop zones, which is nice. Warpcoven don't get multiple boons if they roll for dice, which is just a bit of a shame. And then you've got Hand of the Archon clarifications in terms of where they can place torment grenades, as well as their now hatchway fight. Well, they can now do 2 hatchway fights with the Crimson Duelist, which is actually really good. Then Fellgor had clarified of how Frenzy interacts with the Chooser of the Flesh ability. And then Inquisitorial Agent can once again scream to turn off the Chooser of the Flesh abilities to Soul Harvest, which is always nice. And then we've just also had some important core rules changes. So basically what happens when you shoot with Blast and Into the Dark, like visibility isn't blocked by your own model, and bases, which bases were already covered, but basically you can look through yourself no matter where you are, which is interesting. Well, once again, some nice FAQs, and as I said, you can find all of these on the Warhammer community download section for Kill Team. But that's pretty much it from me today. Please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of today's video. Did you like the FAQ? Do you like how surprised as I was to see it happen? And yeah, what do you think? Especially as we're going to have a fancy new release tomorrow. Would you like FAQs more regularly? Let me know. And remember, I've got a Discord you can check out in the episode description below for free, and the fill link at Element Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. And I'll quickly shout out my patrons. So for my Adepts of the Crit, I have Willax, Tom, Super Cow, Sam, Nick, Mercenary Q, Kenzie, John Thomas, Graham, Freeman, David, Dave Meets World, Dad of Goldens, and then for my Veterans of the Crit, I have Sam. So thank you so much for all your support. It really means a lot to me and helps support the channel. But yeah, that was a quick fire FAQ. My voice may sound a bit weird because I've literally just woken up. So I need to edit this, get ready for work, and then I'll see you guys bright and early Saturday morning, 10 a.m. if you haven't checked out my channel already. So until next time, no matter what the FAQ says, you always have a chance to win as long as you can roll a crit.